Happy Saturday, everybody. Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you with the most up-to-date political, economic, and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in. And first up is a fairly incredible story. There is no sugarcoating this at all. Foreign direct investment, FDI, in China has nosedived over the past 3 years, marking a drastic shift from its peak of $344 billion in 2021 to just $4.5 billion in 2024, and this is according to official Chinese government data published yesterday, Friday, as well. This represents a staggering 99% decline, driven by economic uncertainty, geopolitical tensions, and Beijing's increasingly stringent national security measures. For those viewers who write in the comments or write to me via email and say, you have been talking about this collapse for years, where is this collapse? Well, this is just one example where you're looking at it. China's balance of payments data for 2024 highlights a sharp 90% drop in net FDI from the previous year, reaching its lowest level in 33 years. While the final quarter of 2024 showed a modest net inflow of $17.5 billion, this came after 2 consecutive quarters of outflows between April and September. Previously, China's reform and opening up policies had attracted a flood of foreign capital, bolstering rapid economic expansion. However, the country's strict zero-COVID policies created significant uncertainties for investors, initiating a downturn in FDI starting in mid-2022. Since then, concerns over China's sluggish economy, a struggling property market, and government-led crackdowns on espionage have further dampened investor confidence. Amid these concerns, several major international, multinational corporations have scaled back their China operations. Technology giants such as IBM, Microsoft, and Cisco Systems have downsized or relocated their research and development centers due to data transfer restrictions and increasing government oversight of the internet. In industries plagued by oversupply, also known as overcapacity, foreign firms have been withdrawing as well. Nippon Steel terminated a decades-long joint venture with Baoshan Iron and Steel, and South Korea's POSCO Holdings is reportedly considering selling its stainless steel factory in Jiangsu province. Similarly, Bridgestone ceased its truck and bus tire operations in China, and Sumitomo Chemical exited the polarizing film market for LCD panels. Foreign automakers have also struggled to adapt to China's rapid shift toward electric vehicles. General Motors recorded a $4 billion charge last year for restructuring its joint ventures with SAIC Motor, while Japanese manufacturers like Nissan and Honda have been forced to reduce staff and production capacity. A survey by the Japanese Chamber of Commerce and Industry in China revealed that only 16% of companies plan to increase their investments in China in 2025, while 21% intend to cut back and another 20% have ruled out new investments altogether. We will touch on Japan specifically in the story shortly. The situation could worsen if trade tensions between the United States and China escalate under President Donald Trump. His administration has imposed 10% tariffs on all Chinese products so far, prompting retaliatory measures from Beijing, including investigations into major US firms like Google, Apple, and Broadcom. We've discussed this over the last week or so. China experienced a record $168 billion in FDI outflows in 2024, reflecting not only foreign investors pulling out, but also domestic firms moving capital abroad. Beijing has tried to counter this trend with incentives such as tax breaks and relaxed visa requirements for foreign investors, but skepticism remains high. Meanwhile, Japan, historically one of China's largest foreign investors, is also redirecting its capital elsewhere. Over the past decade, Japan's investment in China has seen a steep decline, plummeting by nearly 60%, a reflection of the growing economic and geopolitical tensions between China and the United States. Beijing's increasing competitiveness in sectors historically dominated by Japan has further contributed to this downturn. According to data from Japan's Ministry of Finance published this week, Japanese investments in China in 2024 amounted to 493.1 billion yen, $3.2 billion. nearly unchanged from the previous year, but significantly lower than a decade ago. China, traditionally a major recipient of Japanese capital, is now grappling with all the difficulties we just mentioned, all of which have diminished investor confidence. The US-China trade rivalry has also influenced Japan's strategic economic decisions. As a key US ally, Japan has started reassessing its relationship with China, diverting more investments towards the United States, where its capital influx has more than doubled over the past decade. In 2024, Japan's investment in the US reached a record high of 11.7 trillion yen, $76.3 billion, accounting for nearly 40% of its total foreign investments. The rise of Chinese automotive and home appliance industries has also reshaped the competitive landscape. Once dominant in China, Japanese car makers now hold less than 20% of the market, and companies like Nippon Steel have ended long-standing joint ventures due to declining sales. As Japan shifts focus towards alternative markets, including Southeast Asia and the US, its investment strategy underscores the evolving economic dynamics of the region. Next up, we have two more developments to cover, but just quickly, if you're getting some value from today's episode of China Update, I have a big favor to ask. That is just to hit that like button and subscribe. It's only 2 clicks of the mouse, but it's a tremendous help for the channel. So if you think that these episodes are worth 2 clicks, I would very much appreciate it. Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links are also in the description below. This channel relies primarily on subscriber support, your support to keep going, so this is also a tremendous help. Thank you so much. Next up, the Australian government has lodged an official protest with Beijing after a Chinese J-16 fighter jet deployed flares dangerously close to a Royal Australian Air Force RAAF P-8A Poseidon surveillance aircraft over the South China Sea. The incident, which occurred at approximately 1 p.m. on Tuesday, saw the Chinese jet release flares within 30 meters of the Australian plane, an act described by Australian officials as an, quote, unsafe and unprofessional maneuver, end quote. The Defence Minister emphasised the severity of the encounter, stating that the Chinese pilot could not have been certain that the flares would miss the Australian aircraft, which was conducting operations in international airspace at the time. Fortunately, the P-8A Poseidon and its crew of up to 12 personnel were unharmed. Australia's diplomatic protest underscores the continuing friction between the two nations' militaries, even as overall diplomatic and trade relations have improved. This is the first major confrontation between Chinese and Australian forces made public in 9 months. A similar incident occurred in May last year when Australia accused a Chinese J-10 fighter of unsafe behaviour near an Australian Navy Seahawk helicopter over the Yellow Sea, also, once again, in international airspace. China, however, has countered Australia's claims, asserting that the RAAF aircraft had intruded into Chinese airspace near the so-called Xisha Islands, a disputed region. A spokesperson for the Chinese Foreign Ministry defended the response, describing it as, quote, justified, legal, professional, and restrained, end quote. Beijing has made, quote, solemn representations, end quote, to Australia over what it perceives as a deliberate violation of its sovereignty. Meanwhile, the Australian Defence Force reportedly observed 3 Chinese warships, including a Jiangkai-class frigate, operating near northeast Australia in recent days. While their presence remains within legal bounds, the ADF acknowledged concerns over increasing Chinese military activity in the region. This latest confrontation highlights the persisting tensions in the Indo-Pacific, raising concerns about the potential for further military incidents in the future. And on this general theme, and finally for today, Taiwan has long cultivated bipartisan support in Washington, with the Democratic Progressive Party, DPP, playing a crucial role in fostering relationships over the past decade. However, as President Donald Trump embarks on his second term, Taiwan faces an increasingly transactional US administration, where its traditional backers find themselves in less influential roles. One of the primary challenges Taiwan faces is Trump's criticism of its security spending and semiconductor dominance. The president has accused Taipei of benefiting disproportionately from the global chip market while not investing enough in its own defense. These concerns have prompted Taiwanese officials and business leaders to engage with Washington more proactively, emphasizing Taiwan's strategic value and proposing new economic partnerships, particularly in energy and technology sectors. Despite these efforts, diplomatic sources indicate that Taiwan's outreach to Trump's inner circle has yielded limited results. While publicly projecting confidence, the Taiwanese government remains aware of the potential shifts in US policy, particularly given Trump's history of offering negotiations on Taiwan's status to China's leader Xi Jinping. If the Trump administration perceives Taiwan as a bargaining chip in a larger geopolitical deal with Beijing, Taipei could find itself in a precarious position. The semiconductor industry, a pillar of Taiwan's economy, is also navigating uncertainty. Reports suggest that TSMC may be pressured into deeper cooperation with US firms, particularly Intel. The US government has floated multiple options, including a joint venture in Intel Foundry Services, establishing a packaging facility in the US, or allowing Intel to manage certain aspects of TSMC's Arizona-based operations. Such moves could fundamentally alter Taiwan's leverage in global technology supply chains. As Taiwan adapts to a shifting Washington, its leaders must balance diplomacy, economic strategy, and national security to maintain strong US ties while safeguarding its interests. Okay, that is today's episode of China Update. Thank you so much everybody for watching. Have a good Saturday, have a restful weekend. Next time I see you, I will likely be in China if all goes to plan. So have a good weekend, and I will see you all on Monday.